Hello and welcome to another exclusive Good e-reader video. This is Nick.
And this is Marcus.
Today we have the Asus EEE NOTE.
It's also known as the EA800. This is a pre-release version directly from Asus out of their manufacturing plant in China. So we're breaking the worldwide exclusive here as far as a comprehensive hands-on review. It's roughly getting into it. It's 2.3 gigahertz processor. It has 4 gigs of internal memory. It does have a camera on the back where it has an outlay on a case for it. No really word on megapixels or...
There is a resolution count when you turn on the camera, however. It's 1600 by 1200 when you do not zoom with it.
Right. So you can enhance the memory via the micro SD card on the bottom. We found that our computer did not recognize the device until we put in a micro SD card. So if you're picking up this device, you know, as it stands right now, this is the way that we got it to work, although hopefully the firmware will be updated where it'll recognize the device internal memory. Let's take a look at the hardware before we get into like the software and hands-on aspect. So you can see right here we have a hard reset button right here. So if your device crashes or is unresponsive, you want to do that. You also have your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You have your
micro USB cable.
And right here is where we have our micro SD card. We heard that this reads up to about 32 gigs. Here you have your speakers. Although one of these actually may be your microphone input as well, because you can actually take voice notes with it. So one of these may be it, because on no other place on the device really has it. There is your power button, and roughly there's no other type of inputs or anything on a device. You see a little groove at the top. It's for the stylus that comes with it. And one of the nice things about this is that it actually comes with a second stylus. So if you lose this one, you do have a backup, but so far the main way to take advantage of this device is via the stylus. So we have the web browser loaded up right here. So you can see that this is mainly how it looks. You could only use the web browser in a landscape mode. It doesn't work with portrait mode. And in order to scroll up and down the page, you actually have to use this. So far we couldn't get online streaming to work with video and with audio. So we tried doing our own internal podcasts and stuff like that on here, and it didn't really work. We kind of got error messages. Just to confirm, we're going to hit our video section here, and this is going to bring up our YouTube library. So let's just verify that YouTube in fact does or does not work on this device straight up. There was really no word whether it was flash compatible or not, so this is kind of like the test that we're going to run. Basically, the instructions were very bare bones on here. There was really no kind of instructions that came with the device that basically were telling you how to use it. And it looks like that it does not play YouTube videos or embedded YouTube content or anything like that in Pages. Most of it is in Chinese, because again, this is a demo copy that we got, a pre-release copy.
Notice that the stylus is, although we did configure it, it is still a little bit laggy and somewhat unresponsive. It's not too bad, but with scrolling, it might be due to the web page. Just because the internet browser is not the fastest thing on this device. Yeah,
we found so far the internet browser is really slow. Pages do take a long time to load. We are on a really fast Wi-Fi connection. There's no other really devices on our network. So far the internet experience is a little bit lackluster, but it says right on the device that the web browser is experimental. So they're giving you visual cues right on the device that is experimental. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the home button. There are sort of buttons here that
there you go.
give you prompts. So even though that you mainly all these things are interacted with via the stylus. You can, you know, go and launch things via the arrow keys here, and these are functionality keys. You can see here that it has a snapshot button, so you could actually take screen shots of anything that you're doing work-wise. So if you're taking notes, if you are on a web page, or you're doing really anything else with the device, you can take a snapshot and it'll do a screen capture.
Also, to add, if you see the 5 tabs at the bottom of the LCD screen, these directly correspond to these 5 user touchable buttons that you have at the bottom, because the screen itself is not touchscreen. Whereas if you were to want to take your snapshot, for example, you would press that button and it would choose the corresponding tab. So if you lose your stylus, you still have some maneuverability with the device.
Yeah, that's right. So let's take a look at some of these things in order. So these are the notes. One of the things about this is that it has very high DPI, and it has tremendous... One of the things that are built about this is the responsiveness with the stylus and interacting with the device. It has about over 250 degrees of pressure. So you can see that we're writing here. Now the harder that you press, the harder that the lines are.
Very accurate. Very accurate.
Yeah, there really isn't a whole lot of lag with writing on a device. A lot of touchscreen e-readers, for example, when you are writing on them, that they do not... Some of them, as you're writing, it has to catch up, whereas this has a pretty high processor, and it does have 4 gigs of internal RAM. So it does allow you to catch up with a lot of the processes. So writing on it's very good. And Nick, you pointed out something with the stylus before, off camera, and why don't you tell people a little bit more about it, how it pressurizes, it bends?
Exactly. All right, let's get a little bit of focus here up close. If you'll notice, let's get a little bit of focus here. Sorry. There we go. If you'll notice on the stylus, there's a tip right there. Now, it's not probably not noticeable on camera, but this tip does secede a little bit into the pen itself, and this has to do with when it touches the screen to gauge the sensitivity of the pressure better. Now this will go in it does sink in a little bit, so it is a very accurate pen, and pretty much all of your interaction with the device will be with this stylus. I don't imagine you could use just any run-of-the-mill 50-cent stylus or hard object. It would be this particular one from Asus.
Yeah, this stylus has tremendous build quality. It is a little bit weighted, so it is a little bit heavier than, say, a stylus that comes with cheaper sort of tablets like the Pen Digital Novel, or say the Ogden Gen Touch and things like that. Their stylus are absolute crap, whereas like this, it's weighted. I really like the torque here, so you can actually press this down and it actually has some bend and give, and the fact that it comes with 2 of these, which is also good.
So they don't make you go out and buy another one, whatever the price may be, to get a replacement.
So let's take a look at doing some more notes with the device. The note aspect is pretty solid. You can select sort of like colors. It does have a lot of different degrees of grayscale. So
about 64 levels of grayscale on the screen itself, to be exact.
So you can do different things like your pen strokes, marker, fountain, highlighter. So let's maybe look at the pencil here, and you can see that the lines
much finer.
Are a little bit finer. So you can see that it is finer lines, and it does have even other things like to highlight specific things. We can probably get a little bit better at that with use. but you can like highlight or underline specific things to bring more attention to it.
Oh, it's almost like it's a chisel tip. You can see that it's wide on some strokes, but it's also...
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at that. Wow, that's yeah, it's a very accurate device. I'm impressed.
Yeah, same.
Look at that. Wow.
So obviously, even
Jeez.
with the highlighter, it has different degrees of like sensitivity and things like that. So each tool that you use, you can customize it. And if we wanted to take a screenshot of this page,
And it's easy as that. It
yeah.
saves the picture.
So, of course, you do have things like, you know, different settings here, thumbnails, and we just exported this.
As a GIF to our SD card.
Yep. So we'll take a look at that in a minute here. But yeah, add tags. It has a lot of different degrees of functionality, which we really like. Pretty well, this again is billed as really like the highest resolution and the best performing touchscreen device really on the market. You do have your calculator. Let's take a look at the reader functionality because it is heavily billed as a student device, and as a student you are going to be reading a lot of books and things like that. This is a Chinese device, so a lot of things are...
If not all of them are Chinese.
are in Chinese. So let's take a look at the user guide really quick, just to kind of give you a little bit of an indication on how resolution and everything looks in books. All of these books are EPUB formats, so guaranteed that this device does run PDF files, and it does run EPUB files, but no really word on what other formats it does.
You will notice that the Chinese character is a very complex character in its stroke pattern, and even though as complex as the stroke pattern is on the characters, you can still make them out very well on this device. So you can tell the resolution of this device is just magnificent, as well as the levels of grayscale really help you out.
You can also zoom in the books as well, so if it's too small for you, it does have a few different levels of being able to zoom in. So let's zoom in maybe 150%. So it doesn't really look like it changed too much. So yeah, it's kind of, we haven't loaded in our own books yet, but we will do that in a future video when we teach you how to load ebooks manually to the Asus EA800 or the EEE Note. So that's mainly a chance of how it looks. So it looked like it did get zoomed in, but when you press zoom, it doesn't in real time make it bigger. You actually have to flip the page, it looks like. So it didn't look like this changed, but when you flip the page forward, it had different zooming functionality. So again, this is kind of early firmware, so nothing is kind of left in stone. So yeah, certain things you need to press with your hands, like the home button, or I can maybe
just
press
press
home
there you
here.
go.
There you go.
Didn't seem to work on that application.
Dictionary functionality. So you can like look up words and things like that here. So this is sort of English. Let's look up the word good. And here we go. So this is a little bit of the dictionary. So phonetically, how you pronounce it, how you pronounce in different languages, different meanings.
Oh, it's a lot of definitions of good.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll get our goody reader up there in the ranks.
Yes. And we have over 60 different...
Definition number 66, goody reader.
Yep, exactly.
One of these days.
So, again, this has camera functionality. We were told by Asus that it does shoot in video. So you can see that Asus did tell us that this does shoot in video, but so far we can only actually take pictures. So you would take a picture by hitting capture. There you go.
My grayscale hand.
Yep.
We're going to click save. Oh.
So you have to press it here. So you could see that zoom 1 is in 1600 by 1200 pixels. The more that you zoom in, the less the resolution gets. We're actually have taken a bunch of pictures outside using the various zooming functions, so we will kind of get into the different sort of resolutions and things like that. But you can see here that you can go all the way to 2.5 zoom. If you do 2.5 zoom, it's 640 by 480 pixels, so it degrades the more that you zoom. Let's take a look at the settings that we have here. So you can see about this device, we've named it Goody Reader. It gives you the chance to change it right here. You know, Wi-Fi, bootloader version, software version, backups. It does have cloud-based storage, so you can store things off-site. If you click on details here, it tells you how much device memory, how much data is on your SD card or micro SD card. Also, one thing that we didn't get into is at the top here, you can actually interact with these buttons. So you can click on here, it tells you how much power is remaining. Click on here to do Wi-Fi, to do your volume. So the device doesn't have volume
That's
buttons.
a hard button.
Yeah, so it doesn't really have hard buttons for volume. So you want to, if you want to turn your volume up and down, you have to do it via the software. At the top here, soft buttons, enable, disable. You could also, you know, if you put new data on your SD card and put it in here, you can rescan it. And this will load into the memory everything that's available. Well, let's just take a look at some of the other settings that they have here. So you can see here that this is where you configure your Wi-Fi network. Typing on the built-in keyboard with the stylus it's very easy. There is as much as easy as it was to draw in the notes is how easy it is to type. You're not really playing catch up. You can actually do a cloud service. It's an Evernote account. We haven't set it up. You need an Adobe ID. You can check out, do different backgrounds and things like that. So there's a way different amount of things that you can do here, for everything from calligraphy paper to a ton of others. You can set a password on a device so you can lock it. So if you have kids and you don't want them mucking around, or if you're bringing this to class and you don't want, if you're on break, for people to like log in and check your emails and things like that. Which, one thing that we didn't show you in a web browser, that it is possible to check emails. Date and time, auto standby. You can check it, so it never goes into standby, 5, 15, 30 minutes. You can go to the next page by clicking the arrow. So this is where you'd personalize your pen and do your calibration, factory defaults, legalese, speak, and so on. When we booted this up for the first time, it actually didn't give us any type of wizard or anything like that. So when you just straight boot it up, that's how it is. Or that's how it is when we got it, at least, with our preview copy here. So you could record voice memos. So, Nick, why don't you record something?
This is a voice memo for the Asus EEE NOTE.
Alright.
Play. Up the volume there. There you go.
Okay, we're gonna just turn the volume up and play it again.
This is a voice memo for the Asus EEE NOTE.
So not bad. I mean, it may not come across in the video, but when we had the levels maxed, there was no crackling. It was pretty clear. So if you're going to be recording lecture notes, or if you're in a lecture hall and you want to record the professor giving a lecture, if he's ranting and raving, you can do that. You can also save it. So we're going to save this. And it looked like it didn't prompt us for any names or anything like that. So we're going to hit home. Now you can see here that one voice memo is stored, so we can go back and play it. Your trash bins, pretty self-explanatory. Sticky memos. Not really too sure what this does, but Oh, so it's kind of like a memo review, or a memo that you can add here, but it doesn't really look like you can.
Looks like you
write.
just have to type.
Yeah.
Unless that button right there next to the X, the one on the left, maybe that one allows you to start writing on it now. Oh,
No, it's for tags.
yeah. So I guess you can't really
Yeah.
interact with the stylus in terms of the drawing on the sticky
So,
note.
Here's our sticky note. So reminders and things like that. You know, then you have your sticky memo here. Do this at a specific date at a specific time. We showed you the web browser when we first logged in to the video here. Now let's take a look at some of the photos. These are the photos that we took outside before we started doing this video tutorial. So this is sort of on the default camera resolution, and as we go forward we see different degrees of zooming. So that's it, zoomed in again, so all on the same shot. So roughly the default zoom seems to be like the highest resolution, so you can see here that it has the most pixel density and things like that. So far it's really kind of like the default setting that I like the most in terms of quality on pictures. Again, hopefully it's coming across on video, but this does look really tight.
It is very clear. The levels of grayscale really help it out to get all the fine details on the picture.
Yeah. Of course, it does have games as well. So let's check out what Bubble Breaker is all about. It looks like...
I would assume you'd match 3 to... Nope, you just break similar pairs or triples, anything in a row. Seems very, very easy. There we go. Wow.
Okay.
Sweet.
So it's all about the double tapping with this game. Okay, and the music player, this is one thing that we've had trouble with. We have loaded in MP3s, AACs, waves, OGGs,
WMA as
yeah.
well.
So we loaded in a ton of things and no music is showing up.
This might be due because this is a brand new device and we got this unit directly from China and it might not be fully updated with the latest firmware.
Yeah, so we would probably say that with the North American release, they probably will update the firmware. So this is sort of like the first iteration of the firmware. So again, streaming music really isn't working on a net. Music isn't working, so we have no idea about what formats this reads, but we pretty well loaded every format, every common format. So unless this plays some super obscure format, we weren't able to get music going. And then you have one of Nick's favorite games here. So let's just show you what this looks like. So very basic.
Pretty standard, clicking the box and... See if I can get one here. I won't spend all day on this, but let's just say this one is a 1. And then your 1 would be starred into there. So it's very, very simple. Nothing too new with any devices. Yes, I did put a 6 where there's already 6. I'm just giving you guys an example. Very responsive even in games and web browsing and everything. The device seems to be quite the responsive device. And of course you are completely reliant on this stylus almost 100% of the time. So
yeah, one of the things is when you load up the web page for the first time, it does bring you to an official Asus page, but from our experience so far, there's really nothing on this page. So we think that Asus is developing this page to basically be a portal. So when you logged in to the web via the browser, it brings you to sort of a standard Asus page. So this is sort of what you see here. The only thing seems to really be on it right now is some pictures. It says that it has downloads and things like that. So you can see that It gives sort of like a hype sheet and things like that. But it didn't really seem like there's any downloads available. There's no user guide, specs, quick start guide, no firmware updates. One of the things that I found was kind of neat about this device on web is that I'm not even touching the stylus to the screen, and it's actually moving the arrow. So you guys can see that the stylus isn't even touching the screen, but I'm moving the arrow all across. So I think that that's kind of neat.
Yes. One more example of how important this stylus is to the device.
Yeah. So yeah, you could see here that when we click specs, it did load. So you can see that 768 by 1024, 64 levels of grayscale. It's designed for a pen, anti-glare, 256 levels of pressure. It's super killer accuracy, standard Wi-Fi. It shows you the storage. Oh, so the camera is 2 megapixels.
There you go.
It says right here. And everything that we sort of told you about before, so there's really nothing new here.
More downwards like that.
So yeah, it takes some getting used to. I would say probably the weakest thing about this device is the web browser, but supported formats is something that we never got into. Is that we did mention that it does EPUB and PDF, which it seems that those are the only two ebook formats it does. It does say that it does support MP3, but we have loaded MP3s on the device and it simply doesn't play them. But you can import your own JPEGs, BMPs, GIFs, and PNGs. It does also has tremendous support for documentation, so it'll do text, doc, docx, Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, and so on. No really word yet if this supports Adobe DRM, so if you buy ebooks from other stores, there's really no word yet on whether this device is compatible with Adobe Digital Editions. But again, when we do our future video tutorial on how to load ebooks in this device, we will get into that. So hopefully you found this video informative. We've pretty well showed you everything there is to really know about this device. We showed you every single app,
Definitely.
all the settings, everything you really need to know. You can see that there is some functionality problems with hitting the menu buttons and things like that in here.
Definitely.
So it's definitely not the most polished device, but the spirit of the device is maintained. I really like it so far in the respects that it does. The sensitivity is pretty well like the highest selling point on this device, where when you write with it, that's pretty well the best features about it. So it really did get it right as far as the pressure and the touchscreen interaction. I like the camera as well.
Definitely.
Again, it's not an e-reader per se, but it is 100% grayscale. So everything really pops from the books that you read to the web pages. Everything is very high contrast, high saturation, and the resolution rate is tremendous. Any final words?
The only thing I think that I could find a major flaw with this device is the stylus dependability. It is entirely dependent on the stylus that came bundled with the device. And of course, I do like the pressure levels, the levels of pressure, the accuracy as we've seen. This is very obviously a necessary tool to the device. But I really don't like how they don't give you the option. If you don't have this stylus, you can't do anything. You can't function the device. And I think that if you don't have this, you can't do anything is just a little extreme, because although this is accurate and is very useful, they're not giving you any kind of, there's no escape route to, oh, I left this at home, I can't access anything at all. So other than that though, the specs, the accuracy, the weight of the device, the look of the device, everything's just, I like it a lot. I really do.
Once the firmware gets updated for a better web browsing experience and it actually is able to play music and it brings it more into a North American standard where the bundled books are in English, the user guide and manual and spec sheets in English, we recognize as a pre-release version, so I'm going a little bit easier on it. But as far as the hardware goes and
Solid.
the Yeah, it is super solid for the price. When it comes to North America, you're going to be able to get this device for $200 or less. And considering that the processor is very fast, it has 4 gigs of RAM, it is a pretty solid device. So, for Good E-Reader, this is Marcus.
This is Nick.
Everybody take care.